I'm not interested in Band-Aids, although I believe that if someone's bleeding and that's what's needed, that has to be part of our efforts, is how do we help people survive as we're making change. But ultimately, I believe we have to do that change work in a way that is leading to longer-term transformational change, which I might not be here for, but, if we all do something, if we all plant seeds, then I believe there will be a harvest in the future.
Throughout U.S. history, some white people have crossed the color line to stand with people of color in the struggle for change. When the student-led sit-ins broke out in the early 1960s, the courage of those young African Americans inspired some young whites to leave school and join the Black-led movement for equality. Yet racial disparities and racist violence persisted, even after the passage of civil rights laws that so many activists had died for. In the mid-1960s, Black leaders insisted that white supporters go and organize their own people and combat racist oppression at the source, in white communities. Local activists Andrea Radmacher, Carla Wallace, and Bob Cunningham discussed these challenges.
It's a historic duty. It's been asked of us over and over again for over 50 years. And we have to stop avoiding each other as white people. But a lot of times, and Anne used to say this, she wrote about it quite a bit. She said, sometimes those of us who are white anti-racists get really comfortable just being in the largely people of color groups and doing our thing there instead of reaching out beyond and building a broader base of white people. So if we want to stop that oppression, the oppression based on race, and if we know we need deep changes in this country to do that, then we have to get white and black and brown and other people of color to stand together.
In other words, telling white people that you can and should be doing something about eradicating racism. I used to think that white people were afraid of black people. But now, what I have found out is that white people are not afraid of black people. White people are afraid of other white people. So the reason that white person won't invite me to dinner at their home is because they're wondering about what their neighbor will think. So they're afraid of their neighbor, not me.
I also think it's really important that we not look to our community members that are folks of color for that education. I think that it is my responsibility as a white person to be open to and answer and teach other white folks so that folks of color aren't left holding that responsibility again and again and again. There has to be a place for white folks to take responsibility for our community and for our actions, and to say to other white folks, this is not gonna fly.
In Louisville, Kentucky, some white folks answered the call to organize their own. Whites Carl and Anne Braden had been on the front lines for racial justice since the 1950s, and when SNCC told whites in 1966 to organize your own, Anne Braden wrote passionately in support of that position. Heeding that 1966 call from people of color and leaders like Anne, some Louisvillians began to focus on organizing white people for racial justice. Carla Wallace and Pam McMichael, younger white activists mentored by Anne Braden, would in 1991 become founders of the Fairness Campaign, a local organization for LGBTQ equality that saw itself as part of the struggle for racial justice and worked carefully to build alliances across races, genders, and issues. That intersectional framework was not common in 90s social justice organizing efforts led by whites. In the 21st century, again with Carla Wallace's leadership, Louisville became a base for the national Showing Up for Racial Justice, SURJ, network, and the formation of Louisville Showing Up for Racial Justice, LSURJ. LSURJ members and allies David Horvath, Sonia DeFries, Carol Kramer, and Shamika Parrish-Wright reflect on the organization's importance.
I mean, it's just such a great environment to really understand the issues around race, and that's white people, and to do our work better wherever we're doing our work. How we do things is as important as where we're going, because we're building something here.
Now we're sort of looking at it as actually what we're going to do is we're going to organize our own people, the white people, and when my own people were not necessarily white people all the time, right? So I think there was that moment of like, okay, yeah, this is my responsibility in many respects, but do I really want to do that? Is that something that, and then it sort of becomes clear that it's not as like you want to do it or don't want to do it. Like if that this is a strategic moment, this is a strategic way of coming at white supremacy.
If there is a Black-led, if there's a people of color-led effort, and you're attending or participating in it, people who are white need to let that leadership lead. I mean, that's not to say you have to be quiet or anything else, but just to be cognizant of the fact that this movement already has leaders. So that's critical, which is again why SURJ is important, because SURJ can approach those efforts then as another organization, white-led organization that wants to be there and show up.
What I like about SURJ is they understand that a lot of parts of this work needs to be people of color led. It has to be someone that shares that same passion and that's strategic and that understands intersectionality, but also understand that we have to lead certain parts of this work. And also understand that we can't be in charge for engaging all the white folks either, you know? And we can't be in charge of always checking and challenging other white folks. I think to get to the point of ending racism, you have to have a group like SURJ.
By bringing a racial justice lens and a grounding in mutual interest to a range of social justice issues, LSURJ organizers today seek to help other whites see their own struggles, their own humanity, as bound up with the work for racial justice. Meg Stern, Shamika Parrish-Wright, and Carol Kramer discuss Louisville's intersectionality.
Fairness from its beginning was always intentional about working in the intersections. The way I understood it when Fairness originated, it was founded by folks who were doing racial justice work. One of the reasons why I always loved working with Fairness is that they were very intentional that no one would be free while others were oppressed.
I came out as a lesbian when I was in college, and when I came home and got involved with the Fairness campaign, that was really when I started to put things together, because the Fairness campaign was doing anti-racist work and had alliances and relationships with, particularly at that time anyway, African American civil rights leaders and organizers.
When I heard about National SURJ coming up and then thinking about the local, what that looks like, in Louisville we do a lot of things well as far as coalition stuff, but to have a group that's focused on the intersectionality of racist practices and everything that we got going on was amazing to me.
We'd always been such a coalitional city. The goal was to all be in the room together.
Anne Braden said more than once that white people need to organize against racism as if our lives depended on it, for in fact, she said, they do. Organizing white people, in particular working class white people, from a place of mutual interest counters the efforts of those in power to keep us divided based on race. Focusing on white people who are marginalized based on sexuality and on class has allowed Louisville SURJ to engage people previously inactive due to an uncertainty about how to engage or a lack of awareness about how their own challenges are connected to the quest for racial justice.
And for me, I believe, as a white person, that you need to get the white people involved. White people have to be the ones to step up and take on that piece of work. And I believe there's a lot of white people who are going to hear it sooner from a white person than they are from a person of color.
I would say that yes, white folks responded better to white-led organizations, and I think that that's why it's so important for groups like SURJ to be active these days.
Especially as white people organizing other white people. I know I can no longer expect someone to go from point A to point Z in one meeting, and that's really okay. Now I realize we had this great conversation. We'll have another great conversation. Maybe these people will never join SURJ, but maybe they'll have a conversation with a coworker, or maybe they'll do something different, or you just never know when some seed is planted, right?
The battle for racial justice has been and continues to be led by people of color. Each and every day, Black youth and undocumented immigrant youth risk their lives in search of liberation. White people should not try to take the wheel in this overall struggle, but they should also not wait to be told what to do. Instead, white people can recognize their responsibility to organize other white people and take action. They can come to see that racism affects the entire nation, governs our country's relationships to war and exploitation worldwide, and thus creates the need for every one of us to play a role in its eradication.
A lot of people now are talking about the concept of calling people in instead of calling people out. The first way to shut somebody down is to get nowhere with a group of people is to walk into a room and tell everybody that they're racist.
This movement is about all of us. It's about the only way you can keep me down in the gutter is to be down there with me. That you're not helping just those people. No. You're helping yourself. You can't help people without helping yourself. And you can't hurt people without hurting yourself. So if we understand it that way, then I think we would be much more willing to roll up our sleeves rather than to ball up our fists.
White people who are organizing white people in the fight for racial justice are heeding a call that was sent out over 50 years ago by leaders of color in the Black liberation movement, the call to organize our own. When white people join in effective, accountable action with people of color-led struggles for transformative change, there is the possibility of a powerful, multiracial, people of color-led movement that can transform this country and its relationship with the world.
I can talk about not being a racist, but I never really understood how I was part of a racist system that was built for me, built for people that look like me, and how I had a responsibility as a white person to speak as a white person and not speak defensively as I'm not prejudiced, I'm not a racist.
Anne Braden, she always used to say, people would say, oh my God, everything's changing, it's a disaster, like this is so hopeless. And she would say, what are you talking about? This is a great opportunity for organizing, And she meant it, she really meant it. She was like, the conditions are there, and we just have to get out there and talk to people. I think it's true.
I really have come to believe that the thing that holds us back more than anything else is the feeling that if it doesn't make waves, it's not important. The feeling that if we're not in a big group, it's not going to matter. The feeling that the little bit I do, nobody will ever notice. I just think that's deadly. We have to believe that little things add up. You cannot get to 1 million without starting with 1 + 1.